Well, so we're excited to have our little spoonful of spirit with Lindy Shock today. So, Lindy, I know our topic today is Gladden the Heart. You want to start us in?
Sure, yes. I want to start with the scripture. It's D&C 59, 18 through 21. And it says, Yea, all things which come of the earth and the season thereof are made for the benefit and the use of man, both to please the eye and to gladden the heart. Yea, for food and for raiment, for taste and for smell, to strengthen the body and to enliven the soul. And it pleaseth God that he hath given all these things unto man, for unto this end were they made, to be used with judgment, not to excess, neither by extortion. And in nothing doth man offend God, or against none is his wrath kindled, save those who confess not his hand in all things and obey not his commandments. So a lot of that is talking about food and raiment, and I want to spread it over everything. I feel like from 1830, let's see, when was that one given? 1831 to now, there's a lot more things that God has given us
Oh,
uh,
yes. All
to be
these modern
grateful for.
conveniences and a lot more. We're not
Yeah,
having
so
to deal with outdoor plumbing and all those things, or no plumbing, I guess.
yes. Yes, so I'm gonna broaden that to more than food and more than clothes. Although clothes, I'm a big fan of some cute clothes. A couple points in there that I just really liked are, well, one is an observation on the Doctrine and Covenants, is that the Doctrine and Covenants, and I think this was a culture thing too, where now we more focus on like the positive and the good things, and here's the blessings, and the Doctrine and Covenants is all about, like in verse 21, it in nothing doth man offend God, or against none is his wrath kindled, save those who confess not his hands in all things. Like that's just the way that the
It's like
DNC words
raining
everything.
fire.
Like this, yeah, exactly. It's more like fear and damnation, stuff. They're comparing it to the stick and the carrot. Have you heard that analogy of like
Either
the
feeding the donkey or dangling the
feeding the
carrot along.
donkey or having
Yes.
a carrot? Yeah. So we like carrots in our culture. Even in parenting, like if you can pee in the potty, you get a treat, and back then I think they were much more motivated by the stick, by fear, and by, if you don't do this, then here's the curse. And we're like, what's the blessing? So that's what this lesson is we get to figure out what the blessings are in everything that we have. I had, for the kid lesson, I just have a bunch of little cards that are the things that gladden my heart. And I know that there's a ton more. In fact, I had a separate thing where if anything wasn't on the cards that gladdens their heart, and then they can draw it. But I just wanted to go through some of the things, and that the point was to recognize these are the things that I really love, and then to figure out how God plays into it. So basically take everything that you love and see how God is attached to it. And even one of them was like a playground. How has God worked into a playground? Because my kids love going to the park. They love
Oh,
going
I
to
know. All
playgrounds.
kids love the park, right?
Yeah,
It's just the
every
best.
day.
Yes.
Every day. Even just like I was thinking with the playground, even leisure, like we have leisure, almost too much leisure. I mean, if we want it, right? We fill it up with all of the stuff that we do, like podcasts.
I have a few things that are filling me up, but on the other hand, like I choose that, right?
Right,
Or I'm
right.
trying to tell myself to work before I play.
But that's even kind of part of our leisure, right? We
Mhm.
choose to create a podcast in our leisure. We don't have to, in this day, like back then, it was food and clothes. Like that's what they were
Oh,
grateful
yeah.
for,
If
because
you
that's
don't
what they were.
work 24 hours, you starve because you don't have everything you need from your farm or whatever.
Exactly. And back then, I just think of the pioneers when they talk about the crickets coming in and eating their crop in the early years of being here, and so they didn't have a very good storage yet. And for us, like crickets come in and destroy crop and then we buy stuff from Mexico instead, you know, like,
Right.
like the prices go up by 25 cents.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
So for us, it's leisure and just being able to go to have parks and to have a government who takes our money and builds parks for our kids. Like there's when I actually started thinking of all that God has done to make it so that me and my kids can go to the playground, it was phenomenal. Like it was just fun to just think of all these different ways that God has blessed me to go to the park.
When you're
Um,
saying that, I'm thinking of the architects that figured out the slides and the builders who were putting together all the equipment. I mean, I never really thought about all the different things that would go into a city park.
yeah, yeah. And it's
It's
just
just there and we just climb on it. And if the slide's broken, we get annoyed.
yeah.
Want the
And
city to fix
I'm
it.
grateful because it entertains my kids for a little bit so I can have a break. In
Yes.
itself is a blessing, right? From God.
Yes.
That's
Huge blessing. The biggest blessing of them all.
anyway, so that's kind of what the lesson is take these little things that we take advantage of every day, you know, and you probably have seen this, but even like our grandparents and books, like we love books and more like I like really fun interactive books with my kids and I do different voices and stuff and to have one printing that happened, you know, in the 1500s and have that become what it is now and I even have a book where it has my kids' names in it, you
Oh,
know, so
cute.
you know all the stuff that we have, the books, the fun books that we have and I can read and my kids who are little are starting to read. I just
It's such a
it's so
blessing.
fun to think about how everything has worked out for us to have these little miracles in our lives that we just don't see as miracles because they've been in our lives all our lives.
Yeah, it's just normal for us,
It's
right?
just
Yeah.
normal. Yeah. For the older kids, I did an activity where it took I actually went up to verse 16 and then down to 21 and I really tore apart the scriptures. So a lot of times and I do this too where I'll just read because we're supposed to read, right? And so I'll just get in my chapter or my page or whatever it is that my goal is for that day. And I learned on my mission how to study. And then, I mean, I remember in college, I heard somebody say, my mom, when she reads the scriptures, she doesn't go to the next scripture until she understands what's in this scripture. And my thought was, she would never get through the whole book of Mormon. That seems impossible. But now I love that concept because she would spend her study time figuring out a scripture or a chapter or something and it could possibly take a couple days and when I was on my mission and had a half hour every morning that I could study I just fell in love with the footnotes and I started making my own footnotes and as I started to remember the scriptures that I read and the notes that I put in my scriptures then when I read something you know 60 days later, I would remember what I put over here and I would put my own footnote. And it was like this big puzzle that I was putting together. And it was so fun. It was so fun. So that's the kind of uh, love for the scriptures that I want to teach the youth is sit down and you take these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 verses and just tear them apart and figure out what they mean for you and what the in that culture what did this word mean because it's different now the way we use it is different than the way they use it so look it up in the dictionary you'll see a couple different definitions that make more sense you know and what does this mean like I said with the food and raiment back then now we have so much more and so much more in our life so let's apply it to all of that you know and so it was just fun to go through and just tear apart those 6 scriptures and ask questions to help the youth really like see what it means to study the scriptures not just read the scriptures.
Which I'm so guilty of sometimes, especially when I'm tired or I'm grumpy and I'm just like, I need to do this today, but
Oh we all are though right I mean
but I love that. I love the thought of breaking it down and I think that they will realize that maybe and it's tough for them. A lot of times at seminary, and they do have a certain amount of, or, some kind of class, a certain amount of
Yeah.
things they have to read all at once. But, take a little extra time, spend
Yeah.
it on those couple of verses. It'll be so much more meaningful to them.
And it doesn't have to be all the time. It's more of learning how to do it. So then if
Mhm.
something comes up, or if you have a question, or if you have troubles, in your life, then you can really dive into the scriptures and find answers. It's the skill of learning the skill so that you can use it when I get called for it. And I think reading every day, even if you're not studying every day, but reading every day is a huge habit forming benefit. There's tons of value of even just reading, and reading it quickly. If you read the Book of Mormon quickly as a novel, then some of the stories start making sense and coming together
Yes.
more.
I
So
did that. There was one time when my kids were super little, I decided that I was going to just listen to the scriptures as much as I could in one big chunk, right? So instead of just reading them, because it was easier when I was driving somewhere, or because otherwise I was getting interrupted all the time by the little tiny ones.
yeah,
So there was every morning I would meet up with friends, and it was about a 15-minute drive, and then we would go for a walk. And so for that 15 minutes there and back, I would listen to my scriptures, and all of a sudden the stories and the characters started to make, characters are real people, but it's like their families and everything started to make so much more sense to me because I was reading it faster. I wasn't reading it quite as slow. And I
yeah,
realized, oh, wait, there are several Nephis. There are a couple of different Ammons in totally different situations that aren't even related to each other. All these different things that just made so much more sense doing it in that way. So
yeah,
I love both directions. And now I love to do more of that deep study on a couple of verses rather than the whole thing. But
yeah,
both are just so helpful, and you just can learn in such a different way. So I'm really glad you brought both of those up.
yeah, yeah. Thank you. I just want to share that, especially right now where everything seems, well, I think it's getting lighter. It's definitely like the whole pandemic and stuff is
We're
there's more
fading out a
hope
little, I
now.
hope.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like even just having hope that there's an end in sight, or that there's
Yes.
a solution. But it was dark for a long time, and if we can take those minutes to still look at what we have and find God in it, just how much, I mean, you saw me, I was like giddy talking about the park, because I was able to find all these ways that God gave me that, and it was fun and exciting. And so I think if we can really take a moment, in this lesson with our kids, to find those things that really can bring hope and excitement and peace. So I'm grateful for this lesson because it gave me the chance to figure out what I'm grateful for and find God in it.
I love it. I think I need to skip ahead and do this lesson with my kids this week because they all need to be a little more happy and thankful.
uh,
Oh, I love it. Thank you, Lindy.
yeah, thank you.
Okay.